Excellent. Hello, Jane. So
Hello.
happy to be with you again this week, talking about another amazing topic in education.
I am thrilled to talk with you about this, and I'm always so happy to talk with you about these really important issues in education and opportunities for us to utilize this incredible platform that is Thrively and to support learners in with all of their skill development. And this is a one that's really near and dear to my heart. I think this is something, executive functioning is something we're always learning, even as adults, right? So I'm very happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited to learn about metacognition and executive functioning. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to dive right into, obviously, this commitment, but certainly let us know where you're calling in from, where you're zooming in from, and who you are, and a little bit about you. We love hearing in the chat. I'm Jeanette Simonson, coming to you from Denver, Colorado, and I've got my colleague,
Jane Patterson, coming to you from Los Angeles. All right, so happy to be here. Actually, I'm going to change my name so you guys can reach out anytime. Jane at thrively.com. Super happy to be here, and go ahead and share where you're coming from. We always love to see this. We've got Ohio. Ohio is always in the room. New York as well. And St. Louis, oh gosh, you guys have such beautiful public art in St. Louis. Hey, Pasadena, we are in all of your elementary schools in Pasadena, and we're in quite a bit of New York. Mesquite, lovely. Louisville, California, kind of California writ large. James Brown from Santa Cruz, County Office of Education. Oh my God, what a beautiful place to live. Thank you so much for joining us. Arcadia, you're a neighbor.
Got some Chicago, my hometown, in here, and
yeah,
and some Texas. Hello, Allison.
Delaware. Oh, cool. All right, Delaware, and we've got Miami and Tustin. Yes, Tustin, reach out to me at any time. Anyone in California, let me meet with you and just show you some of the great stuff that we're doing. Everybody around the country, New Jersey, reach out and learn more. Thank you so much, Loomis. All right. So
let me throw this, I'll put it in the beginning this time, because I know last week we did it towards the end, but if anybody's kind of new to Thrively, you're coming at us and maybe you've heard some rumors about what we're doing. We've got a lot of new features, a well-being index, so many great things for SEL and well-being for all learners. I'm going to put a form in here. That way, if you're interested in sharing what you've learned and what you're hearing, please fill this out and we'll be happy to give you a pro features and connect you. So thank you so much for doing that. I'll take it away, Jane.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. So we're going to do a grounding strategy. And you see that if we were all together, and maybe I'm going to do it, I'm going to slip off my shoes and I'm just going to put my feet on the ground. If we were together, we would be sitting in a circle doing a grounding activity that really kind of places us in this space, gets our all voices on the table. And the question I'd like to ask for our grounding is, what was the commitment that brought you here today? Think for just a moment about what that was. Feel free to post that in the chat if you wish. We'd love to know. And the commitment that brought me here today, if we were in the room, I would share, is really being in community, the community of other educators. Jeanette and I, of course, are both educators, being in this community of people who are really thinking about how to impact the lives of the young people and the educators that they serve in really powerful ways. And just being in that space just makes me feel so good. So that's my commitment.
I think mine goes back to, my favorite word, empowered, being empowered by all of you. We're all learners. I'm continuing on with this crazy doctoral degree, and many of you are continuing on with education. So we're all learners, and I learned so much from all of you all the time. We have people who are thinking about their own classrooms, a parent who's trying to learn about executive functioning. That's certainly all of our places too, is just to learn how we can support our own kids as well as the students in front of us. And furthering learning, great. How to help my students better, work with families with young children. Thank you for sharing, all of you.
This is energizing. This is why we're here, for you to be in this company. Thank you. All right. So now that we're kind of situated, let's go ahead and take a look at what's happening today in this brief session. So we're going to look at executive function skills, but how we're going to do that might be a little bit different than something you may have experienced before. We're going to take a pretty deep dive into metacognition, just because it's so important for all of those skills. So we'll look at how metacognition empowers strategic thinkers. That's what we want. We want empowered strategic thinkers, students doing the thinking for themselves, setting their own goals, thinking about strategies that are effective for them. And we'll look at that today, and we'll look at how that drives executive functioning. And of course, you're going to see the Thrively features that help build executive functioning skills for your learners. If you don't have an account, please get a Thrively account. And simple, go to thrively.com. You can link our Thrively to your Google account and you're ready to go. Be sure to join as an educator, though. I know you may also be a parent and a student. Often educators are parents, students, and educators, and a million other things. Join us as an educator tonight. All right. So developing executive function skills, what are they? So let's take a look at how they're defined. So adaptable thinking, that's key. And planning, of course.
I move my cursor, sorry.
Okay.
There we go.
Thanks. Self-monitoring is so important. So we'll just go ahead and pop all of those in. You can see them on the screen as they come up. So what I want you to think about is, and if you see something else, share it. If there's something else you want to explore, pop, or everyone else to know, pop that into the chat at any time. We're certainly, we're in a room of experts tonight. So anything that you want to add, put it in the chat. But if you look at these 7 skills, think about what we're talking about with metacognition. Certainly adaptable thinking, right? How am I going to be flexible? Things change all the time, and humans are uniquely qualified to do this, right? So of course we're instinctual, but also we're always planning ahead, and plans don't always work out the way we expected. We need to be adaptable. And then making a plan for the future. How am I going to do on this test I'm taking tomorrow? Or maybe I'm writing an essay, or maybe I'm just planning what I'm going to have for lunch. So all of that requires metacognition, self-monitoring, of course, and self-control, time management, as well as organization. So all of these things are very specific to us. And that's why we're going to say, hey, let's take that deep dive into metacognition and support students in developing that. And working memory, of course, is important, because we have things that we've remembered from our past, right, that are having an impact on what we're doing today, and that influences everything. But our ability to think through all of these executive function skills is really what drives our strategic thinking and planning.
Well, and what I love about this, Jane, and I used to teach 7th grade, but I think really highlighting these for students who may be feeling vulnerable because they know some of these are not their skill sets and some of these things they're struggling with. And when we bring it to their attention that maybe there's some hormonal things going on, maybe it's just how their bodies and brains are made, and we're there to support them. Boy, we see them kind of, just get the monkey off their back and breathe a little bit more, because we're here to help them with these things. It's okay. Most people are not good at all of these things, right? I know I'm looking at some of these going, oh, yep, I need to focus on these. So I love that we're bringing this to the forefront of the conversation for students.
Well, thank you so much for bringing that up. Absolutely. And I just, I think sometimes because we plan so much, right? We come into class like we've got it all together, our kids think, oh, it just comes naturally. It doesn't. And that's the part about modeling executive function skills and that metacognitive approach that's so important. So Jeanette, thank you for bringing that up. And I also, when you were talking about that, it made me think about high school students. So now in middle school, secondary students, prior to that, you had one class, and that's really all you had to think about. And your teacher was there to help you, and your desk was in the same place, yes, right? For the most part, and all your stuff, you lifted up the thing and there's your stuff in your desk. And now, in secondary school, and especially high school, now you've got to manage multiple priorities. Like, whoever taught you how to do that? Right. And I don't, I've got sticky notes everywhere. I don't know about the rest of you, but, so now suddenly you're expected to just know how to do this.
Sorry.
So
I clicked off something. I was clicking on the chat. Sorry, everybody.
no problem. All right. Thank you so much, Jeanette. So we want to bring us back to this core premise of Thrively, which is self-awareness being that driver of every single thing. And we're all on a journey in life to become more self-aware. I know I am, and you probably all are too. But for our young learners, we want to make sure that gets surfaced as early as possible. So in Thrively, of course, students take the Thrively Strengths Assessment so they can utilize those. Hey, we're not going to all have the same strengths. These are Anna's top 5. She's focused, she's analytical, she's flexible. Those are great strengths to have, and they certainly will help her with her executive function skills. So we also know that some of Anna's habits of mind are striving for accuracy and managing impulsivity. Again, an executive function skill doesn't mean she has it all the time. So we want to go back and say, hey, Anna, right, when we're struggling with something, let's look at that top habit of managing impulsivity. What does that actually mean? What does it mean to you? And how can we leverage that? So start here, guys. Have your young folks take the strengths assessment, have them go to the digital portfolio and really talk about who they are, and then be able to use that with them as they're setting their own goals and making a strategy that works for them. Okay. So this is just a very quick overview. It's just a couple minutes of what executive function means. So let's take a quick listen.
We're not born with the skills we need to get things done successfully, especially in this fast and complicated world. But here's the good news. The skills we need can be taught, and they form a foundation for self-regulation and help build social emotional skills. Grouped together, 3 of the most foundational are called executive functions. Executive functions are a set of 3 cognitive skills: flexible attention, working memory, and inhibitory control. When complex things are happening around us, executive functions help us stay on task, make plans, set goals, and carry them out successfully. They act like a traffic flagger, intentionally managing and coordinating many things at once, like helping drivers and pedestrians stay safe and making sure they obey the rules of the road. Flexible attention allows us to shift our attention when necessary, directing it to the most important tasks and sustaining it while we're working on them. Flexible attention allows us to switch focus quickly from one thing to another. Working memory is the ability to remember and use important information, like driving directions. Working memory allows us to store important information so we can access it when needed. Inhibitory control is the ability to pause and think before we act. It helps us resist impulses. It keeps us on task and helps us set goals and carry them out. Executive functions help students learn and be successful in school, solving math problems, following directions, reading, playing sports, and resolving conflicts. These skills will last a lifetime and be used every day in school, at work, and at home. They're a vital part of an education that teaches the whole child.
All right. So you saw, okay, are there 7? Are there 3? Right. So you'll be the judge of what makes sense. I like them when they're broken down, but I think that just gives us a nice little level set so that we are all talking about the same thing. So let's take a quick look at the definition, just right, thinking about thinking, right? Appraising something. Is this the right thing to do? Is this the best thing to do? Is this the right order in which to do things or the correct priority, right? Self-control and monitoring, just monitoring our thinking. So we're going to take that deeper dive into metacognition in just a minute. So let's take a look at some of the research. And these studies are all in the slide presentation, which you will receive. So without reading the whole thing, just 3 decades of research shows that students who are able to use metacognition, right, are just more successful than students who haven't built that skill yet. And the great news is we can show students how to do this, right? We already do it. We do it naturally. You're all doing it right now. You probably have 75 things going on right now, and you're always thinking about your thinking. But because it happens so naturally, we often don't take the time to share with students what we're doing. And this is why they come, and I just want to spend a second on this, and Jeanette, get your input too. But I'm thinking, you know, as educators in front of our site leaders, district leaders, county offices of ed leaders, we come prepared, right? We want to make sure that we've got this, you know, and we often forget to share with folks who are learning from us that that metacognitive approach. So go ahead and stop and show your youngsters how you're thinking about your thinking. Make that audible, show them all the time. Research says that's important. That modeling is absolutely key, because they think we just come out fully baked out, you know, went in, come out fully baked. Not yet, not really. We're just prepared.
Well, and I think some of that, you know, we go back to storytelling a lot, and you know, so much of what we do here at Thrively is about relationship building. So going back and sharing those stories of when you overcame a challenge, or, you know, even if it's in the current moment. I always remember, you know, when I was a teacher and I went up to the board and I tried to spell a word, and it was a word that I'd spell right 100 times, but when I'm at the board, when I turn to them and go, you guys, every time I try to do this, I spell it wrong. And what do you think that is? And we'd have this really interesting discussion about how my brain is thinking in 4 different directions. And, you know, just that basic, like, how do you spell the, right? How many of you have ever not, you're like, how do I spell the? I don't know, you know? So it makes them feel like we're all in this together, you know, and
yes,
stop and pause and breathe sometimes too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you shared that, right? Like, okay, I'm doing an experiment. Well, what would I do first? What would I do second? Why would I do that? Right? This character analysis. Well, what's the motivation of that character? If they think we know, we don't know. We're curious too. And it shows that we're curious and we're continuously learning. So Jeanette, thanks for sharing that example. All right. So let's take a little deeper dive. Now, you are not going to watch this whole thing, but you will have it if you're interested in it. Just the little last bit, just to give you a sense of what this is about.
Do your beliefs
started about 2, yeah.
Probe your thoughts to understand why. Having metacognition of your own beliefs and non-judgmentally examining them gives you the necessary distance to evaluate which beliefs are worth keeping and which should be discarded. Your beliefs and thoughts shape your life, but they're not who you fundamentally are. In our second video in this series, we'll look at the actual process of becoming the architect of your own beliefs so you can truly thrive.
I think why we included this in this presentation was that I think it's so, so important for students that just that word non-judgmental, right? So many of us have heard things like, oh, you're not good at this. And those ideas, those notions get reinforced over time. And it would be very hard to set a goal around something that you think I'm just not good at that. Why would I set a goal around math when I know I'm just not good at math? We're going to be, so that key phrase, non-judgmental look. Let's all be non-judgmental. And how do we reinforce that every day in our classrooms so that we're saying, this is just where we are right now. So Jeanette and I put this under a growth mindset header because that's really what it is. Right? Okay, this is where I am today. And this is normal. We all do that. We all do this. We all have those gremlins, as Brene Brown says. We all have those voices in our head that say we're not good at something. So let's remove the judgment and know that that we are able to set a goal, and it can be a challenging goal, and to now create an action plan that's going to move us from where we are now to where we are tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that's popping up in the chat that I'm seeing a lot of us say is, you may have a child at home, or we have, students in our classroom. And I think we're trying to fix a lot of things, right? As the educators or the parents, and instead maybe shift that mindset to, you don't have to fix it. But what's really great is that you can start asking questions. My own son struggles here, and I just ask him, well, how are you feeling? What is causing that? And I get him to think about his thinking, and he's so articulate. well, Mom, I'm frustrated because this happened and that happened. And then, and suddenly he's calming down and figuring it out himself. I mean, what? I didn't have to solve it. So I think that's so great. We had a hand raised too. I want to pause to, let's see, maybe it was unintentional. Certainly if anybody has any thoughts or questions, because like I said, we're all in this together. So if you have resources or things you're trying that are working, please pop them in the chat and share them with the rest of us. So thank you.
Absolutely. And before we move on from this, you made me think about something, Jeanette, and that is that think about those strengths assessment, that initial strengths assessment in Thrively. This is another reason for you adults, please take it yourself. So then I can say to my students, hey, I'm really struggling with something, but I know I have drive as one of my top strengths. And what does that mean? Drive means, and I'm explaining my students what drive means, or my colleagues, right? Or other, educators for whom I'm facilitating a professional development. So I have drive, and drive means that I'm going to be very determined to figure something out. So this is a complex challenge for me. So I'm going to use my drive to figure it out. So when we give that strengths assessment, sometimes it's like, okay, tick that off the list. No, use it. Have students metacognate on it and on their habits of mind. It's going to be so powerful. So as you see right here, can metacognition be taught? Of course it can. It can be taught. We all know that. We've linked this Edutopia article, and modeling is one of those first steps. All right. Now, there's so much brain science on metacognition that's happened in the last decade. So we're just, our brains are just wired to detect conflict. And if you do end up watching that long video, 5 minutes and like 38 seconds, but if you do end up watching it, they're talking quite a bit about cognitive conflict. And the way that it's working here in the brain is, so you have the student, just imagine, I'm going to use math as an example. So you've studied, you have this plan, you have this expectation that you're going to do well on a math test, you get it back, and you haven't done as well as you thought. So now there's that cognitive dissonance, right? That cognitive dissonance that says, wait, this is different from what I thought. And the easy path is going to be to say, well, I guess I'm not good at math. The harder path is going to say, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to think about it. What goal could I set? What did I do wrong? And science is showing, right, how that is building more synaptic connections, right? So that's going to just lead to greater success down the road. How do we share more of the science with kids to say, no, it's just actually just your brain and your thinking, and that you have power and control over all of that.
That makes me think too, so much of, and we talk about as developmentally, I remember playing that game where, my son would close his eyes and I wouldn't be there, right? It's the minute he closes his eyes. And so it's even like this, like I can't tangibly touch this, but I'm feeling something. Now, different than throwing a ball or something physical. What do we know we have to do? We have to practice. We don't come out of the womb being able to throw a ball, but guess what we do? We practice it. And I think if we really highlight that for students, some of this, again, can be a relief, but also what are the steps to get really good at throwing a ball or running or hurdling or some of those more complicated sports that require us practice hours and hours. I think it goes back to that. When did we land on 10,000 hours to become, maybe it was 100, I don't know, but some of this, it takes you 10,000 hours to become good at too. So.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. And, in our description, we talked about riding a bicycle. Like that could be, if you ride your bike to work, or one of your students does, bring a bike into the classroom and say, imagine you don't know how to ride the bike. And now you're going to explain, what's the first thing I do? What's the next thing I do? How do I do all of these things at once? And I think that would drive home this idea that to our students who do know how to ride a bike, like you already have internalized that, and you will internalize other things as well. You don't remember how hard it was. You don't remember everything that's happening all at one time to get that bike, put that bike in motion and to keep it upright. So yes. Okay. Now let's take a look at what we have next. Now we talked about the habits of mind. And this is Art Costa and Vinnie Calic's brilliant work, 3 collective decades of work in the habits that that successful people tend to possess. Well, they weren't born with them, they cultivated them. So our learners will take this assessment, but look at these 3 that are highlighted, right? Managing impulsivity, persisting, and of course, metacognition. So we can help our students when they understand what those habits are. We can help them, show them the evidence, have them take the habits of mind assessment and set goals around those. Okay, let's see what's next. So speaking of setting goals.
This is my favorite one. You know that.
I know. Do you want to talk about this?
I would love to.
I would love it too.
You know, one of the things that keeps resonating with me as we do all of this is, and I want to bring us all to be learners. And you've all shared that you're trying to support maybe another person or a group of students. And so it starts with your own. What are your goals for this topic? And for, you know, number one, you're all here because you said, I want to learn more about it. Great, you accomplished that goal. Now, what are some of the questions that are kind of cultivating in your mind right now that you want to investigate further? Obviously, we're not going to solve the world's problems in 30 minutes, although that would be very cool. But what things do you want to know more about? I'd love to hear what some of your questions are, if you might throw that in the chat. And what those can do then, let me just pop into the Thrively platform, is give you a place and a space to be able to share. And actually I need to log off and log on. I was giving
while you're doing that, so there's a question about a organization skills and executive function. So organization is a really important executive function skill. Why do these things go here, right? What's the purpose, right, of putting certain, okay, do you want to get into goals? We're going to talk about goals, and we want to show you the executive function playlist because there's quite a bit about staying organized. So imagine your child setting a goal around organization.
Yeah. And I think not only the child setting the goal, but here's a really great idea is whether you're setting a goal inside the Thrively platform, or you're doing a dream board like Oprah used to talk about, or you're writing in a daily journal, is here's my question. And you and the student, or you and your child, are working on answering. It's an inquiry mindset, right? We're working on answering this question. How do we, and somebody shared, you know, develop executive functioning in an ADHD child or student? Well, I don't know that answer. Let's go figure out who we can lean into. And so you can go create a goal right here and say, with your child, let's do this together. We're going to figure this out. And it feels like you've got someone to lean in with. We all need teammates. We all need support systems. When do we think we can accomplish this by? And what are our first steps? And again, a lot of teachers I work with all over the country, it's what is that first step? Celebrate it, right? We're one step closer to figuring this out, and you do this celebration. Maybe you go out for ice cream. I don't know, but you know, you do some sort of celebration in your class. This goal setting piece inside of Thrively is wonderful because you can set it for yourself and for a group of students. If you want more joy and passion in your classroom, assign it to all your students, the entire class. All my homeroom students are going to feel more joy, and I'm going to assign it to them. All right.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know we're almost at a time, but I'm wondering, Jeanette, if you can show the action steps in a goal, because right, having a goal is great, but what are the steps that we need to do to get there? So for the parent who's struggling with the child, yes, let's have a goal. Let's go get some images of what organization looks like and put that into the goal. So if we look at and like, yes, there you go. There's an action plan. So as Jeanette said, with your child or with your learners or adults, educators out there, we can use this goal setting feature for ourselves. What steps are we going to take? And who's my inspiration? I can upload any media. So, okay, child, let's go find some images of people who have really nice organization. What does it look like they're doing? So it could be a video, it could be a photo, it could be a photograph that you're uploading. But what's our, as Jeanette had said earlier, what's our first step?
Absolutely. Wonderful.
Great. So let's look at the executive function playlist, and you guys are going as attendees of the webinar. You're going to get some executive functioning resources, lessons at each grade band level. So we have some K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9 through 12 that you're going to get. So look at that, managing multiple priorities for our high school students, our middle school students. How do we control our emotions? Our 3 to 5s, they need to do it too. They just need to become a little more emotionally aware, don't we all? And then how do we develop a little more self-control in our K2? You can really use these across the grade levels, but you have one for each grade band.
Yeah, it's organized this way, and you can see. So we'll be sharing this out with all of you and making sure you have access to this. There's so many other executive functioning playlists in here, as you can see. So please reach out to Jane@Thrively.com or Jeanette@Thrively.com, and we can connect you with any of the resources that are in here, or even help you customize your own so that it's really meeting your child or your student's needs. Really some fantastic resources, because like I said, I was a general education teacher for 15 years, and then, kind of got thrust into this coaching role. Having to support many different learners is a heavy task. So thank you for all being here to really kind of look through that.
So thank you for those questions, and thank you for the very specific ADHD question. I don't think we're qualified to answer that, but I will say, look at the resources here in the Thrively platform and help your youngster, chunk those priorities. How do we prioritize and keep it simple?
I'm gonna, hopefully I don't lose my, there we go, I can do this. I'm gonna put the presentation in the chat right now for anybody who needs it. There was a question about how we'll get this resource. We're going to share it for everybody that's attended this webinar. The playlist gets shared with you. I am going to quickly, in the chat feature as well, give you access to the code. Okay, so here you'll see executive function. And there's the form again to fill out. If you share some information about maybe an administrator or principal that might want to know more about Thrively, we'll certainly circle back with you and give you pro access. But if you use the code executive function, all one word, we will make sure that you get access to that playlist that Jane has put together for all of us.
Well, I want to thank everybody. We have been recording. I think we'll stop in just a moment, but just to really thank you for your attention. Thank you for the intentions you set for the evening. And we're always so grateful to you and all the work that you do. And thank you now in advance for building out this executive functioning skills. And we really appreciate everything that you do.
Yeah,
all good wishes.
Shar has a question, and where do you use the code? So what you'll do is you'll get an email from our from Thrively that will give you access to the link for the web for the playlist. And that's the code that you'll use. It'll be included in the email as well, but we will make sure. And for some reason, if you have any extra needs, because there's just one lesson per grade level in this one, but if it's enough to get you going for tomorrow, that's great. And if you need more, again, please reach out and we'll make sure that we push it out to you and we get you what you need, because we really more than ever need to support each other. So absolutely.
Thank you. And you can also, you can go ahead and create the account, go to the playlist store and go to purchase the executive function, the webinar playlist, and it'll ask you for the code. And then you put in the executive function code. So that'll get you there too. Great. All right. Thank you so much. You guys are wonderful. And so I'm so grateful. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely evening and just a great weekend.
And set some goals. And part of it is to take care of yourself and be happier, right? I want everyone to go out there and celebrate all that you've been doing so far. So thank you so much, Jane, for this valuable information. And we'll see you all next time. We have 2 great webinars coming up soon. We've got Andy McNair sharing Genius Hour next week, and she's going to be joined by Allison Curry, who is an assistant principal in Los Angeles doing incredible work. And then the following week, we have our fabulous Jonathan Mooney and a special education administrator who's going to be coming to us with some great strategies as well. So please look out for those webinars. More to come throughout the next couple of months. And thank you all for being here. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. See you next time. Thank you, Jeanette.